I was proud to be the first, Chinese American person on Real Housewives of Dallas. I thought I was going on Bravo TV to be like fun, fluffy housewife, and now I'm like a spokesperson for anti-racism.
Did you ever resist throwing a slap at someone on the show?
Yeah, sometimes I did want to slap a bitch. Marijuana, by and large, doesn't affect our anesthetic plan that much.
Thank God. Welcome to Jeff Kung Show, Tiffany.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This is fantastic because, I've been trying to get a hold of you for a very long time to get on here. And because I feel like, we have some type of, I don't want to say bond, but some weird commonalities because, my sister was on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And before that, you were on Real Housewives of Dallas.
Yep.
And then we're known as the first Asians on reality TV.
Yep.
Right? You've gotten that a lot, right?
Yes.
So, well, talk about that first. Was it, when you did it at first, did you have trepidation for it? Or were you like, oh, I'm going to be proud about it? Or...
I think that representation is important. I think you can't be what you can't see. So I was proud to be the first, Chinese American person on Real Housewives of Dallas. But yeah. I didn't think too heavily about it, right? It wasn't that big of a deal. I just thought I was going on a show to make some new friends and have fun.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. So I only bring that up because it feels like I have to bring it up. Oh, you're the first Asian on a reality show. But for example, you're an anesthesiologist. It's already very commonplace that Asians are doctors. So no one would be like, oh, the Asian anesthesiologist is here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of I don't know. It's kind of a weird commentary on where we're at in media today, where you still have to call it out.
Right.
Yeah,
we're preceded by our race. That's how people identify us.
Right.
Yeah.
But it feels like we should still be proud about it. Yet at the same time, why do we need to be proud about it?
I think it's important to be proud of your cultural heritage and your identity. But I think sometimes we want to be seen outside of that and not just have our Asianness define who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Jackie Robinson, the first black baseball player.
Right.
But now if you say a black baseball player, it's
it's
duh.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't even have to say that.
Yeah.
If you actually, let's say I did an interview with a baseball player and I mentioned, oh, being a black baseball player, what do you feel? I almost feel like they'd be offended by it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
So because the reason I ask that is because I'm sure after you had your stint on the Dallas show, you all of a sudden became the flag bearer for Asian issues.
Right.
Anything Asian, they're going to ask, all right, what's Tiffany think about this?
I became the spokesperson for the anti-AAPI hate and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I thought I was going on Bravo TV to be fun, fluffy housewife. And now I'm a spokesperson for anti-racism.
Right. It sucks you in, right?
Yeah. But I was happy to do the work. I was glad to have a voice.
Right.
So I'm not, biting the hand that feeds me or anything. But yeah, it was strange how that all happened.
Was there any issue that popped up or any question that was given to you that you felt either uncomfortable to answer or were you I don't really know about that? Why would I talk about that?
Yeah, I generally stay away from politics, religion. I think there's a forum for that. And my social media is not that forum.
Right.
So generally when people ask me to express my opinions on politics and religion and political events, I try to abstain because I always tell them I'm staying in my lane. I talk about things that I know about, and there are definitely more educated people who can talk about those topics. Yeah. And I will defer to them.
But okay, so when COVID was here,
yeah,
you're a doctor, you're happy to be Asian as well.
Yes.
So my fiance is a teacher, and at the time in Australia, they were the kids were acting up, and she was like, "What's going on, guys?" They were kind of avoiding her. What's going on? And they finally fessed up and said, Miss Tan has COVID. Miss Tan has COVID. We need to stay away from her. And she was super offended by it because obviously, yeah, she looks Chinese. And, the kids weren't trying to be racist.
Right.
Right? It was almost unintentional. Yeah. But she just felt okay, that's kind of weird. Now, did you get any I don't want to say flack, or did you get any questioning or any comments during COVID?
Yeah, there was one in particular, a older white gentleman, and I was pre-opping and consenting him for surgery. And he said, "Can I get a doctor that doesn't have COVID?"
No way.
And my mouth was open, but I guess he couldn't see because I had a mask on, you know? But my mouth was just like open. And I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I was like, sure. So I went and talked to our supervisor that like makes the schedule assignments.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and asked the board runner to switch rooms with me.
Really?
So that the patient, like, he didn't want a quote unquote doctor who had COVID. And I was just like,
wow, that's shocking.
and my friend was like, oh, you should have given him a lesson or talked to him. And I was like, you know what? I'm just here at the hospital, like trying to do my job. The patient, the patient has made a very clear request, and it's really not my job to go educating people. Like, I don't have the time for it. So I literally just told the board runner, I was like, hey, switch me rooms with the guy next to me who was a white male anesthesiologist.
Right.
And I was like, hey, switch rooms with me because it was at 7 a.m. We hadn't even started yet. So it's like fine to switch rooms.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not a big, I take your room, you take mine. It's not, and no one, and my friend, I was talking about it with my friend, sort of debriefing after the fact. And she was like, that's absurd. She was like, I can't believe you actually did that. And I'm like, but why would I want to take care of someone who specifically asked that they don't want me to take care of them? And then there's a complication or something. And then I'm like, no, if someone clearly expresses that they don't want you for whatever reason.
Right.
And you know what? At the end of the day, like, it's not personal. Like, did it hurt my feelings? I guess, yeah, a little bit, but he doesn't even know who I am.
Yeah.
He obviously has some sort of construct in his brain that, any Asian doctor has COVID. And I'm like, I don't have time to deal with this level of ignorance. I just don't.
So is that how you would also deal with hate that you receive online?
Yeah. Like, it's too exhausting to try to fight the hate. So if somebody says something online that doesn't agree with me, I'll just block. I mean, it's just block.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So it's like a Tiffany Moon block party? Is that what's happening every day?
Yeah, it's not as bad now. Like, back then when COVID was happening and when Real Housewives was showing, there was like a lot of haters and stuff.
Right.
But now I would say for the most part, I hardly ever see. And also I have a social media manager now who often gets to it before I do.
Right.
So she's probably blocking people that I don't even see. She's sort of like the gatekeeper. You know what I mean? Like, I don't answer DMs. I don't answer emails. Like, everything that comes to me from the outside world is first seen by someone else.
Got it.
Before it gets to me. And that's a protective mechanism that we had to put in place because there was just really ugly stuff going on out there.
Well, I was going to bring chicken feet here for you to eat, but I couldn't get it
Some
delivered,
dim sum,
so
yeah.
my bad. But yeah, because when I remember that all going down, the chicken feet controversy,
Chicken feet gate,
and the crazy like vitriol that was being thrown your way online, I was just thinking, like, what's the issue? Like, I just had that last night, Yeah,
and the funny thing is, chicken feet gate, as I like to refer to it, was not actually about chicken feet. You know what I mean? Like, it expanded so much outside of that people are making decisions, and there's a saying like, don't yuck my yum, that they teach to children, right? Like, they teach that to children. So then you have this socialite, quote unquote, and who's supposed to be like well-mannered and, well kept and that kind of stuff. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, the problem that really happened was not that they didn't want to try chicken feet. It was that she then went online and compared her dog food and said, I'd rather eat this dog food than chicken feet. And
the whole Asian dog thing. Come on, yo.
Right.
Like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
It's just so offensive. Like, it's just so culturally insensitive to make fun of someone's food that they eat on a regular basis, like my kids eat it. Yeah. And then compare it to dog food. Like, there's just a certain... it was a little bit below the belt, and that's really when I lost it.
Got it.
Not that she didn't want to eat chicken feet. Like, it's fine, whatever.
There's things that I don't eat in Chinese food too,
Right,
so it's not a big deal to not want to eat something. Right. But to make fun of it. Correct. And compare it to dog treats.
Now you've gone over the line.
You're like, come on, yo.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Let's fight.
Yeah, exactly. But by the way, did you ever resist throwing a slap at someone on the show?
You know, physical violence is never the answer. But yeah, sometimes I did want to slap a bitch for real, but I didn't, you know, because that would not be good.
I can probably guess who, but I'm not going to say.
Yeah, and we don't condone physical violence.
Absolutely
I just want to
not.
make it very clear.
Absolutely not. Okay, so, and that goes to my next question, because I know you graduated high school at 15, got your medical degree by 23, you know, and you became a specialist, anesthesiologist. Did you feel like a lot of the people on the show were of lesser education than you or less culture than you? Because you, after doing your rounds, after going to medical school, fast-tracked, I'm sure you were around some geniuses. So how did it feel being in that new, let's say, environment?
You know, I never try to education shame anyone that they didn't have a professional degree or didn't even go to college. Some of the smartest people that I know that run multi-million-dollar businesses didn't go to college. So it's not about education per se.
Yeah.
It's just when you act so trashy and uneducated. I'm not actually trying to out education you, but you're acting just not sophisticated, and you call yourself a socialite, but then you act like trash.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense to me. I really thought that the show was a lot of elevated ladies with class and sophistication.
Yeah.
I think I went on the wrong show.
Well, I mean, because I could just imagine that you and Daniel and, you know, just Crystal and me and Rob, when we were considering going on the show, there was a lot of family conversations, and, you know, we watched the show a few times, and we had to kind of, you know, really have a heart to heart, should we do this? Because I think both of us are outsiders when it comes to this whole reality entertainment game. So what was that like? Did you guys have to really, did you guys almost say no?
Yeah, I mean, I said no the first year that they asked me, because I was actually asked to be on season 4, but nobody knows that. Yeah. And I said no, and then they asked me again, and my friend Deandra was like, can you just talk to casting? Just take a phone call. It's like, okay, fine. And then I didn't actually, while I was interviewing, you know, going through the rounds of interviews with them, I didn't actually think that they would pick me. I thought that I would just go through the interviews and see what happened.
Yeah.
But I knew that there were a lot of other women in Dallas who were trying out for the show, and they really, really wanted it. And even when I was talking to the casting director, I was like, look, I still work full time at the hospital as an anesthesiologist. My schedule is pretty tight, and I have young twin toddlers at home. So I don't know if I can do this. And I just want to be transparent with you because I don't want to waste your time.
Right.
And she was like, no, let's just talk. Thank you for the transparency. Let's just talk and see how this goes. And so when they offered it to me, we want you to join season 5, I was like, oh, I didn't really think I'd get it. So it was a little bit of a shock. And then I said to the executive producer who called to tell me, I said, can I let me think about it for a day or two and get back to you? And there was this long pause on the phone, and he's like, yeah, take some time and get back to me. And I think everyone else who gets the phone call that they're invited to be a housewife is jumping up and down, screaming and whatever. And then I'm over here oh, okay. Can I have some talks with my husband and stuff and let you know in about 48, 72 hours? I don't know, but I think that was atypical.
And they're like, yeah, we'll call you back in a half an hour.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So okay, so were there moments on the show where you thought to yourself, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah. Week 1 and 2, I was this, no, seriously, they were the hardest. And I tried to quit.
Did you really?
I tried, yes. I had a particularly bad, interaction, let's say, with a castmate. And I went to my executive producer and I said, this schedule is crazy. I'm working full time, then I'm filming. I barely see my kids or husband.
Yeah. Can
you guys demote me to friend of?
Really?
Because then you don't have to go on as many trips, and it's housewife light. And they were like, no, you got to stay. You signed a contract. And
once you had the drama, they were like, you ain't going nowhere.
I know. It's because of the drama that I wanted to leave, and because of the drama that they wanted me to stay. It was a catch-22.
So the first time that you got drama, because I remember Crystal had this issue too. You don't know how to react in the moment because cameras are on, and just even as Asians being respectable, maybe sometimes more non-confrontational.
Correct.
Because people don't understand our culture is not avoidant, but we speak in undertones.
Right.
Right. You never say no to someone.
And you never have
You
like
say
a
it's not
screaming
convenient.
match or something. Like that's never, I don't even know what to do. And it's very like triggering for me.
Yeah, because when I was in China, sometimes we're talking business deals and people are like, "Oh, that went great. That meeting was fantastic. I think they're going to buy this." I'm like, "No, they're not."
No, they're not.
No.
You did not read the undertones.
Right. You
Yeah.
got to read the undertones.
Right.
So they say, "Oh, well, think about it," means no. Okay?
Yeah.
So I would imagine that being on a reality show, you don't speak in undertones. You can't.
No.
You know, and so you kind of have to attack it full on. And, you know, sometimes my sister would be calling me. She's like crying on the phone and like, "Can't believe they said that to me."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, so what did you do on air?" "Oh, nothing." I'm
Right.
like, you got to flip that up.
Yeah.
What you're doing to me right now,
Right.
you need to put that on camera.
Yeah.
And then to me, you have to brush it off like it's no big deal, like it's just showbiz.
Right.
Did you ever have some of those moments?
Yes, for sure. I'm conflict averse, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, I am bordering on avoidant. That I just, if there is something that needs to have direct conflict, I just don't like it. And it's like why I went into anesthesia. You know, I just do my things, but there's like very little talking, no fighting.
Yeah.
I just had to learn, I guess, to stand up for myself. And actually, if any good things came from being on Housewives, I actually learned to like use my voice and stand up for myself. Because with the whole dog food thing, like I think the old me would have like let it slide. Like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, 没关系, you know, just
Yeah.
let it go.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I don't feel like letting it go. Like I've been letting it go for the last 35 years and I feel offended and it's insensitive. And guess what? This time I'm not going to let it go.
Damn
so
right.
it kind of gave me a voice a little bit.
So it's probably also because when you do watch the show, right? After you filmed it and everything.
Yes.
Were there moments where you're like, "Damn, I should have said this," or "Oh, I
of
wish I could have
course.
said that."
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there any moments like that?
There was a few, but actually there was some that I was like, hey, I must have been on my A game that day because I came back with the comeback quick.
Right.
But yeah, of course. And it's just the thing that people don't realize about Housewives is that you film it for about 12 weeks. Then there's this period where they're editing it for about 12 weeks and then it shows. So then when it shows on national TV, you have to like relive something that happened almost 6 months ago
Right.
that you thought was over or not a big deal, but now you have to like relive it. And then you get to see other people's reaction to it. And you're like, oh, well, that's not how you acted at the time. But then
Right.
on screen, they're saying one thing. And you're like, you know what? It's just very weird.
Well, that's how they get you, right? The
Yeah.
producers and stuff.
Yeah.
And then like, because I remember, you know, when they would like kind of prod at you and remind you to say something at
Correct.
a meal or remind you, hey, remember what happened last week? You guys should talk about that. You know? So do you feel like you were ever baited into any type of conflict?
For sure. Not just baited, like told to say something. You know, that very first conversation that I had with a castmate about, she had made this video about like slanty eyes or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were like, you need to address the video. You need to address. I was like, it's not my job to address the video. And actually, I don't really think that she meant to like hurt anyone with this. She was just being kind of insensitive. But like, I don't want to talk about it. And they're like, you have to confront her about the video. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to.
And then you were like, all right, fine, let's do it.
Because they will wear you down. Seriously.
And then they'll have a whole reunion and you got to talk about everything again.
It's just
and
so
relive it
much.
all.
It's mentally exhausting. People think that Housewives just like whatever, you know, you just go about your life and there's just cameras. No, it is really mentally exhausting.
Okay, so let's talk about like the aftermath.
Yeah.
Right? Because Crystal's not on the show anymore. I'm
Right.
not on the show. You're not on the show, but we're all doing our next endeavors.
Correct.
So was there like, was there an afterglow or was there kind of like a down point where you're like, oh, wah, I'm not in the spotlight anymore? Or
Oh, no, because I only did one season. You know, Crystal did 3, right? So just one season is not that big of a deal. And the funny thing is for the actual filming of that one season, it was only 12 weeks.
Right.
So it was but a small snippet in the history of my life.
Got it.
I think people who do it for like a long time, like several seasons, 5, 6, 7, 8, those people, and then, you know, they're asked not to come back or their show gets canceled or whatever, I think that's more disruptive to them because that's kind of how their identity is based.
Yeah, they become
And I think
that.
that's very dangerous, you know, because if your identity is based on something and then that thing gets taken away from you, like what else do you kind of like spiral afterwards. But no, I just did one season. I had a whole identity and a whole life before Housewives, and then I pivoted and I'm still doing all these other things. So it wasn't a big deal for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever get in the moment like intoxicated by the fame, or were you like, oh man, I'm a star now?
No,
Never?
it never went to my head because, again, I didn't want my identity to be wrapped up in Housewives. You know, it was something that I wanted to try. I thought it was a great opportunity. It opened up a lot of doors for me, and for that, I'm thankful. But I never let the fame get to my head, or, you know, I'd be stopped by someone somewhere and they'd want to take a selfie with me or be excited, or my social media would grow. It was all like icing on the cake for me, you know, but I never wanted it to get to my head.
Okay. So, but were you practicing anesthesia during the whole time?
Yeah, I was full time
You really?
when I was filming.
Even after when it was airing, you were full time?
Yes. And then I went down to 4 days a week, which still feels like full time, you know, especially when you're raising a family too.
Right.
And then I went down to 60% about, I would say 2 years ago. So I'm only in the operating room 3 days a week. But then I decided to, you know, be a women's empowerment coach, write a book, and hold a conference. So it's like, I'm still full-time. I actually think I have 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing a lot, you know,
Yeah.
and you have like, what, three kids? Four?
I have 2 biological children,
Yeah.
and then Daniel has 2 from his previous marriage, but they're in college now, so
Okay.
they're not even home.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. But so when you were actually practicing and the show was airing,
Yeah.
and you were in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, everyone in Dallas is watching the show.
I lived in Dallas, and I never watched Housewives of Dallas before I was on the show.
Okay.
So I don't think a lot of people watch it. I mean, it was one of the lower, you know, it's not like Beverly Hills where it was like 1.2 million or something.
Right.
We were like at 500,000. It was like the redheaded stepchild of the Housewives franchises.
All right, but still people are watching, and like, you know, people don't understand, anesthesiologists really don't see the patients that often until like the surgery day.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Or
I
until
don't
the
have a
procedure.
clinic.
Right.
You don't like call to make an appointment with me.
Right.
No one picks their anesthesiologist, generally speaking.
So did you ever get recognized when you walked in and like
No.
people freak out or anything?
I also work at a safety net hospital, which
Uh-huh.
is for patients that are often uninsured, sometimes undocumented.
Okay.
And I don't think those kind of patients are watching Real Housewives.
Right.
Once in a while, I'll get a patient who recognizes me, or they'll be like, you look kind of familiar.
Right.
And then this old guy, his wife goes, oh yeah, aren't you that Dr. Pimple Popper? And I was like, no, that's my friend Sandra Lee.
Okay,
and I
yeah.
adore her. And I was like, but I am not her. And if she was consenting you for your anesthesia, I would be very, very worried.
Yeah.
Because she's excellent at her job, but that's not putting people to sleep. Yeah.
All right, so no one freaked out, because I would imagine like if someone saw you like, oh my god, and then all of a sudden their heart rate goes up and whatnot, and then you're like, all right, I need to
You're
pump you
having
some
a
more
heart
drugs
attack.
now.
No.
Never?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the nature of the work that I do and the hospital that I work at, like, I don't think my patients have any idea who I am, which is great. Like, I
Okay.
like it that way. It would be weird if my patients like recognize me or were like excited to have surgery with me. I don't want that.
Right. So has your experience on a reality show changed your perception of humanity at all? Because you're a biologist, right? You've learned all these things about people.
Yeah.
And then has that changed at all?
I mean, I don't know if it was the reality TV or the social media that came alongside it, but it kind of made me lose a little faith in humanity. You know, it just like sometimes people can be so ugly to one another.
Yeah.
And it's not what I'm about. You know, I'm all about like uplifting other women and empowering women.
Yeah.
And then people are like, but you went on Real Housewives. And I'm like, okay, look, it was just one season.
Touche.
I tried it. No, you have a point. Let me explain. You know, I think you have the platform to then do what you want with it. And, you know, TV basically gives you a platform to talk about the things that are important to you.
Right.
So if I had to go on Housewives to have a voice, like, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they had a good point.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, it sounds like you're still practicing, but you're also doing a plethora of other things that you're really interested in.
Yes.
So I know you have the Lead Her Summit that's coming up. Is that November, right?
Yes, November 8th through 10th in Dallas. It's 3 days.
So you being a female empowerment leader, did you kind of get sucked into that, or was this something that you were interested in before doing Housewives?
No, I think, a lot of the issues that come up with me and my friends talking about work, it's not really like, oh, I don't know how to practice law, or, oh, this patient was really sick and I don't know how to do his anesthesia. All of the issues that we were talking about were like leadership issues, how to have difficult conversations with people, hiring and firing, social media, marketing, negotiation, like how to run a business. If you have an idea for a business, how do you even start, like incorporating it or doing an LLC and hiring a business manager, an accountant, like all that stuff. No one teaches us those things. I mean, I guess if you went to business school, you probably know those things. But having gone to medical school, like I was almost 40 years old and I'm like, how am I starting a business? I don't know anything about it.
Right.
So I was like, why don't I create a conference where women from all different professions can come and learn from each other? And we have, skill sessions and breakouts and panels about like, legal pitfalls to avoid when opening your business, or how to do social media. A lot of people still are like, oh, I wish I knew how to do social media. I'm like, you just do it.
Right.
Like, there's no like class that you just start posting stuff. You know what I mean? And so basically the conference is just a amalgamation of all the things that I wish I had been able to learn when I was starting my businesses. So 25 amazing speakers, including Crystal. Shout out to Crystal. We also have Dr. Nicole Martin from Miami, and she's bringing her friend Gertie, who's like a top wedding planner. So I think it'll be really interesting to get her perspective on like planning big events. We have lawyers, we have financial wealth advisors, business women, my actual executive coach, Sunny, who is in the top 1% of female CEOs in the United States.
Wow.
And she's coming to speak. So it's like, a star lineup of speakers.
All right, I'm going to be an ignorant man for a second.
Okay.
Right? And like, it just from the outside, it feels like being a woman today, I'd be like quite confused because there's so many hats that women have to wear.
Yeah.
Right? If you're like more of a traditional woman, you want to be at home with the kids, you want to just like, be more of a homemaker. And then, but now the power woman has a career, has a job, like or is a philanthropist, or it can be a socialite, or it could be on social media, or there's so many different things that women can do now. It's like, who's to say what's right and wrong? Like, I wouldn't know where to go.
I mean, I don't think there's a right and wrong. And I think, as women these days, we wear so many hats, and it's like, try a hat on. And if you don't like it, take it off,
Right.
Like, I have a friend who's a stay-at-home mom, and she has 5 kids, but she does social media, and she does a lot of like cooking stuff, funny things with her kids. And her social media is huge. She has like 10 million followers.
Right.
And she started doing it because she was like at home, like kind of bored and wanted something else to do, and she started making content. So I think that's amazing.
Because men have it kind of easy. Like, we know what we're supposed to do, right? Make money.
Right.
Right?
Get a job, make money.
Provide
for your family. Yeah.
Provide, whereas women can kind of do everything.
Yeah.
But do you feel like the traditional role of the woman is still something that's admirable? Or would you feel like someone is a homemaker, like, nah, you should be doing something?
No, we would never like look down on another woman. I think it's, her prerogative to choose how she spends her time and energy. And quite frankly, I think a woman who stays home and raises kids and keeps the house and keeps everyone else running is like one of the hardest jobs in the world. Like, I couldn't do it, Like, it's easier for me to go to the hospital and put people to sleep than it is to stay home with 2, twin toddlers potty training, and one just like spilled yogurt like all over the wall, and I'm like, I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard.
So how do you do it as a modern woman? How do you do the balance, the thing?
I think the key is balance. I had help. So I went back to being an anesthesiologist full time, plus taking overnight call when my twins were 6 weeks old.
Wow.
I had twins, and then 6 weeks later, I was back at the hospital full time. I remember like pumping in between surgeries, coming home, breastfeeding. It was all kind of a blur that first year. But I think where the balance comes is to give yourself grace and know that you can't be everything all at once. You know, some days I'm an excellent mother, some days I'm an excellent anesthesiologist, but probably not both on the same day because there's not enough time.
Right.
And that's where the balance comes, you know? So I work hard when I'm at the hospital, and then when I'm home with my kids on the floor, playing with them, teaching, reading, singing, all those things. And that's where the balance comes in. And it's not always perfect. And I used to guilt myself really bad.
Oh, really?
You know, yeah, I'd be away from the house for like 24 hours on a call, and, you know, would miss things with the kids. And I was like, oh, I'm such a bad mom. You know, like if I was a better woman, I would stay home more or something. And the guilt never helps anyone.
Well, it touches back on the reality thing. Like, so on TV, I remember my sister would say things like, oh, I could never engage like that or do something like that. My kids are watching.
Right.
Or they're going to get like, you know, they're going to get heat in school for it.
Right.
Or whatnot.
Yeah.
But it feels like to be in entertainment, you have to have such thick skin that you just don't care.
Yeah. I think at some point you really have to stop caring.
I mean, it seems like everyone on reality TV has to get a divorce at some point.
Yeah, there's like somebody warned me when I was going on the show, and I was like, oh, should I do this housewives thing? And they were like, oh, be careful because like it'll ruin your marriage. And I was like, why? Like, and they're like, oh, if you go on Housewives, like this much of housewives all get divorced within like 5 years of being a housewife. They had like statistics. I was like, who's running Bravo statistics? Wow. And I was like, I mean, I think my marriage is good. We're pretty solid. Like, I don't think a little TV show is going to disrupt our marriage.
Right.
I think what happens though is that the TV show like magnifies whatever's going on in your life because you simply cannot hide when that many cameras are in your house and up in your face.
Right.
And the producer's always asking like, so are there any issues in your life? Right. So it always comes out.
Right.
So if you have any cracks in your marriage, going on reality TV will amplify them.
Right.
But I don't think reality TV causes people to be divorced. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course not.
Like Crystal and Rob are fine. Me and Daniel are fine. Because
Right.
we didn't really have any big issues. But people's marriage are like on the rocks and they're like, oh, let's go on reality TV. And then they
Right.
get a divorce.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes because there's people who go on reality TV who are like, they're going there to make a name for themselves. They're going to create the drama. Like, even if the drama doesn't exist, they're like, I'm just going to play a divorce or I'm just going to play a cheating scandal or something just to give them a little, storyline.
That's really pathetic.
Do you feel like you ever were a victim of that?
No, I mean, I didn't have any kind of manufactured storylines because I literally just displayed my life exactly how it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, my storyline on the season I was on was like work-life balance because I was like, I cannot keep going like this, you know? So I had a meeting with my boss to reduce my hours. And then drama with my mom,
Right.
you know, growing up as an Asian person and always feeling like I wasn't good enough for her and she was always reprimanding me. And
Yeah.
so those were like my main issues, that and chicken feet gate, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't have any manufactured stuff, but I just think it's so sad when people have to like make up storylines just to have something to show on TV.
I know. I know the whole the mom drama that you had, the first saying "I love you" and this, that, and people not believing that was the first time she ever said that.
I know. I'm like, trust me, it was. Yeah, it was the first time. Like
Right.
that was, and if not, like I should deserve an Oscar for that level of acting if that wasn't real. They're like, oh, that was so fake or whatever. I was like, it wasn't actually. I'm not that good of an actress.
And you with your kids are completely different then.
Right. No, I like over shower my kids with affection and I'm always like, mommy loves you. Mommy loves you. Mommy's so proud of you.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, mom, get away from me. I know.
But they're going to know like all of a sudden Mama's so cool and actually she's leading a women's summit and been on TV now. And have they gotten any feel of that yet?
They just like the free PR.
Okay,
you know,
got it.
like Drunk Elephant sent like all the skincare stuff to me, and then my kids stole it all.
Did they really?
Yeah, they took all my Drunk Elephant, all my Glow Recipe, all my Tower 28. Like they took all of it.
How old are they?
10.
Oh, they're 10?
Yeah.
So, okay, here's a question.
And they're like doing skincare routine. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? Kids are wild these days.
I was just about to ask. So Zoe's the same way.
Yeah.
She's going to Sephora and buying all this skincare. And
everything's like $46. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not buying that for you.
And second of all, your skin is perfect.
I
That's
know.
what everyone's
What do you
trying
need
to get
skincare?
to.
You're like, yeah.
Everyone's
You're
trying to get
10
to
years
your
old.
skin.
Yeah.
So, okay. So do your kids have phones yet?
No.
No
No.
phones. Okay, because I wanted to ask you because you're a doctor and you've been on social media and you've been on reality TV.
Oh, no phones.
No phones? Any social
Zoe
media?
have a phone?
No, not yet.
No social media, because the kids, their brains are not fully developed and they don't understand that social media is like all false, or it's what people are choosing to show. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, and their undeveloped little brains cannot handle it.
So what are your views? What year are they going to get a phone? Because right now a lot of people are saying junior high, but I'm not sure if that's even right. So what is your plan with Daniel?
If it were up to me, I would do like 15, 16.
15, 16. Okay.
You think that's late, huh? And I'm like, you can have a dumb phone, not a
Yeah.
smartphone.
Right.
You know, mommy used to have this pink Motorola Razr. It was a flip phone.
Love
it was
it.
pink. You can have a phone, you know,
Like
so that
30
mommy can
keychains on it.
call. Yes, all the little things that you wrap in there. And you can have a phone so that, you know, mommy can communicate with you and you can call me to be picked up from your friend's house and things like that. But I just don't want them on social media on their phone.
Right.
That's the problem, not the phone. So I'll get them a dumb phone.
So like I've debated this with my sister and many people. Like, all right, if the currency of today is followers and clout and this, right? And just like you should start a Roth IRA for your kids at like, 10 years old and get them started early.
Yeah.
Is that the same with social media?
We are not comparing a Roth IRA to social media, Jeffrey.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not a 529B
Right.
savings plan. No, there is no advantage to starting social media early. I think conservatively that kids should not be allowed on social media until they're 13.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I tend to agree with you.
Yeah.
I was just, steel manning the other side of the argument.
Yeah, no.
No.
I am pretty adamant because I do social media. You know,
Okay.
it's one of the many hats that I wear.
Yeah.
And it's ugly out there. It's the wild, wild west. People hiding behind screen names, saying whatever they want.
That's the thing I don't like.
Say that shit to my face.
So
say
that's
it to
the
my
thing I
face.
don't like. Now, I was like a radio show host in China for a
Right.
very long time, right? And social media there is somewhat more civil.
Right.
But the reason is because you have to verify each account with your phone number and your ID.
Right.
So every person online there is fully verified.
Right.
So whatever you say can be traced back to you.
Right. So you're much more careful about what you say.
Right.
Whereas here it's the wild, wild west.
I actually think that's not a bad system.
Yeah.
Like everyone to be verified.
Yeah.
So every comment that you see, okay, they're saying it to your face.
Right.
They're not doing it in anonymity.
I think it would quell a lot of the bad stuff on social media if everyone had to stand behind what they say, because I stand behind what I say. I don't have a fake Insta that like I go trolling people's accounts on. You know what I mean?
Some like burner
time?
account.
Who's got time for all that? You know? And so I mean, I see things all the time that I don't care for on social media. I just don't go and leave like some terrible hate comment. I just scroll past, or I'll block the person if it's really offensive.
What's the worst thing that you've seen thrown your way?
Oh, mine is generally like, oh, your voice is annoying, or why are you wearing that? Like, you shouldn't wear that. You're a mom. Or how many times are you going to tell us you're a doctor and you graduated from Cornell when you were 19? Like, quit bragging. Or I'll be unboxing a pair of shoes or something. They're like, all you ever do is shop. Like, why don't you go help some homeless people? And I'm like, how do you know that I didn't? I actually
Right.
do a lot of philanthropy in my community. So how
Yeah.
do you know that I'm not helping people? Just people having something to say about everything that I do.
Well, I kind of think like the internet is the place where every thought possible is expressed.
Yeah.
So every hate, but every love, every, kindness, everything, just everything in the world.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Google, where it's like AI. It's like everything is in one place. And then you just decide which ones you want to like, respond to or not.
Yeah, but this is hard for us as adults.
Yeah.
So going back to kids, like they can't handle everything, like you said. Their little minds can't understand what's real, what's false. There's been studies showing that kids who are on social media have higher rates of depression and self-harm. And people have, there's a really good book that I was just reading called Anxious Nation or something by Jonathan Haidt. I was just starting to read it. And he very well explains like the detriment of social media to our children in particular.
Right.
So I'm like very adamant now.
But see, the tough thing is they're going to say, Mommy, but you're doing it.
Right. But mommy's an adult.
Right.
And mommy, you know, can make decisions. And when you're an adult, you can do that too. You know, but you're a child right now. And my job as a parent is to protect you.
Yeah, I got you.
And so for me, it's a no.
Okay. So like continuing the idea of like, you know, not the idea, the fact that you're a doctor, I had some questions as an anesthesiologist.
Yeah.
Number one, when people say they're a doctor when they're not, how does that feel?
I mean, it's not like a personal attack on me. Like, I don't really care, you know, what you say you are. You're like a spiritual healer or doctor. I don't really care. I just think the public needs to be informed that when you say you're a doctor, generally what we mean is medical doctor or dentist or sometimes a PhD or something. And I don't think it's good to intentionally mislead people.
So not a nurse.
Right. I wouldn't. Yeah, not doctor.
Okay,
and
so
this is the thing. I am going to get in trouble now because people are like, what do you have against nurses? I'm like, I don't have anything against nurses. One of my best friends is a nurse, but she doesn't call herself a doctor.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't turn it into something it's not. Yeah,
right.
I think clearly stating your credentials is good, just to be accurate.
Because when my sister's drama was going down at the time.
Oh my God, I was dying. I was dying. She was texting me. I was like, oh no.
Because my half sister's also an anesthesiologist.
Correct.
As well.
Yes.
So we like kind of hit home, and I had to ask you that question.
Yeah.
So as an anesthesiologist, basically you take people in and out of consciousness.
Correct.
Effect.
Correct.
Right. So what are your views on consciousness then? If
Oh,
you have such a
gosh.
malleable, I know we're getting deep now.
I know how many hours
You
is
know.
this podcast going to be.
So because
Like-
you have a different relationship with this subject than anyone else.
Right.
Because literally you can control it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, just what are your views about that?
Well, I think that's a very, existential question. In terms of anesthesia, I mean, we basically just give people so many drugs that we completely flatline their EEG, which is like a brain processing electroencephalogram. And we actually watch their brain waves get quieted down. So there is nothing else. Like the brain is silent. It's wild how quickly you can make someone go to sleep and how quickly you can just snap your fingers and they wake up.
So that's specifically by administering drugs.
Yes.
That you can control someone's electrowave lengths, essentially.
Yes.
Activity, brain activity.
Correct.
And then you can see it on the EEG where it goes so low that you know when they're out of consciousness.
Yep. They're asleep. They're not going to remember because, we're sometimes worried if we're giving someone a light level of anesthesia that they might have something called awareness under anesthesia, which people are like, oh my God, I don't want to be paralyzed and awake and they're cutting me. That's like everyone's worst nightmare.
Right.
I think there was a movie about it or something. That does not happen most of the time because we're paying attention and watching. It does happen. It tends to happen when the blood pressure is low, the patient's losing a lot of blood, it's some sort of bad trauma case, a C-section, things like that. Because we have to back off on the anesthetic drugs that make you not have consciousness or remember anything. But all of those agents decrease your blood pressure. So if you're bleeding out and your blood pressure is already low, we back off on our meds. And sometimes in that window, there's a little bit of remembering.
But it feels like you can actually see someone's consciousness go lower and lower and lower on the EEG.
Yeah.
And like that must be, I'm thinking more, not the religious context, but what happens when we die? What happens to our consciousness? Is our consciousness literally just electric waves?
Yeah.
Or where do we go when Tiffany Moon puts me under? Where do I go? Where does my soul go? Where does my consciousness go?
You're like in a senescent, you're just kind of silent for a minute. It's like there's a pause, like you're not forming new memories.
Right.
You're asleep, but it's not the kind of regenerative sleep that you get when you sleep at night. It's like a medically induced coma, basically.
Right. Well, it feels different, right?
Yes.
Because, I've been under before.
Right.
And I remember my sister did it and she counted down from 10, 9, 8, I was done.
Yeah, no one ever makes it to 10. To 1.
Right?
Yeah.
But then I wake up And she's there, and I'm like, so when are we starting? She's like, oh, it already's done.
Right.
But whereas when I fall asleep and I wake up, I know time has passed.
Right.
Right? Why is that?
Because we take you to such a deeper level of sleep than you sleep at. Because even when you sleep at night, you have deep sleep, you have light sleep, you have REM sleep, but it's a lighter level of sleep. I mean, we are doing a medically induced coma. It's not even sleep, you know?
Really?
We're like giving you heavy drugs to basically take away your memory and your consciousness. We intubate you. I breathe for you. I control your blood pressure. I control your heart rate. I mean, it's a lot going on. It's much deeper than like, oh, I had a nap.
Right. Exactly. You know?
Yeah.
So, okay, here's a dumb question, but why don't people do this instead of, you know, when people are on hospice? Why would he keep putting them on the drip versus just having an anesthesiologist putting them through like some deep sleep, deep coma, and then finishing it like that?
Because that would be like physician-assisted suicide.
Oh, all right. Well...
And we're not allowed to do that.
That makes sense.
Although some people do. I think there's one state that they do allow physician-assisted suicide, but I don't,
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
This is now going way off topic, but I had a dog and he got really sick and we had to put him down, you know? And it was terrible. Like I held him as they injected the propofol and he like stopped breathing and I was like bawling, you know?
Right.
But then sometimes like, you know, this is going to sound really bad, but sometimes I'm like, why don't we put people down, right? Like we put dogs down, right? Because they have cancer. He's not eating. Like he's miserable. And it's a regular thing that people have put down dogs before.
Yeah.
But then as a human, like grandma has cancer. She can't eat. Like everything hurts.
Yeah, you got to put them on 2-week hospice and just give them heroin basically for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But why would you do that?
It gets tricky, you know, because then it's like we're supposed to be helping people and like healers, but now but I don't know, sometimes, and because you have to forgive me, I worked in the ICU and I've seen people who were getting chest compressions and blood transfusions and trached and pegged and hooked up to all these machines and drips and stuff, and I'm like, that is not the way I want to go down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not at all.
Like if I was sick and couldn't eat and had a trach, like put me down, like give me a dose of propofol and just have all my family there and hold my hand and just let me go. So I think that's kind of where you were going, right? But it's too touchy. I don't know. It's too dicey. So we have to like do all these life-saving things at the end of someone's life, and it's crazy.
Okay, so you touched on propofol.
Yeah.
You know, like when you heard about Michael Jackson and all that.
Oh yeah.
Were you like, man, that was a bad doctor who just gave him too much?
Oh,
because
yeah.
I know you guys use propofol a
every
lot,
day,
right? That's pretty much the main anesthetic that you guys are using.
Correct.
Right? And
yes.
you guys can really control that to a pretty fine degree.
Correct.
So what happened there?
I was deeply involved in the Michael Jackson case because of propofol. And my professor, Paul White, who was like my mentor and first taught me about clinical anesthesiology research, was the expert witness for Michael Jackson's doctor.
Oh, really?
So it was like I was like watching the case on the TV, you know, in court.
Right.
Okay, so basically, for those of you who aren't super familiar with this story, because Michael Jackson had insomnia and a bunch of problems, he asked his cardiologist to administer propofol to him for sleep, because he had had so many plastic surgeries, right? Mm-hmm. And he was so stressed out, having a lot of anxiety, mental health issues. And he said, the time when I've had the best sleep of my life was when I was getting anesthesia.
Okay.
And he's so freaking rich or whatever, he was paying his cardiologist, I think, $500,000 a month or something crazy, to administer propofol to him in his bedroom so that he could sleep. Wow. And I was like, what? There are so many things wrong with this. We just got to like dissect it. First of all, insomnia is not an indication for propofol. Right. Propofol is meant to either be used for sedation, for like a colonoscopy or something, like a twilight zone of anesthesia, or general anesthesia, which means you no longer control your airway, I control your airway. Where Michael Jackson's doctor went wrong is he was running an infusion of propofol, and Michael Jackson stopped breathing, and he was outside in the hallway taking a phone call. So when he came back in, he was like, you know.
He wasn't even monitoring him?
I don't know what monitors, but he had left the room. So even if he had like a blood pressure, a pulse ox, whatever, I mean, the monitors are going off,
Right.
but you're outside in the hallway. So what good is the monitor, right?
Oh my gosh.
So that's what happened, because you start propofol, patients get sleepy, they continue to breathe on their own, but then it accumulates because you've been running an infusion for hours.
Right.
And then they lose their airway and now you're screwed. So if I had been doing that, I would have, resuscitated him, intubated him, given him oxygen, all those kind of things.
Right.
But he didn't. And by the time he came back in, Michael Jackson had like coded and died, and then 911, all that stuff, but it's too late.
Got it. So it was fully the doctor's fault.
Fully.
Okay.
One, he shouldn't have been doing that.
Right.
And two, he didn't do a good job.
Right. Because I remember my sister was saying, my half sister, she was saying, dude, it's giving propofol a bad name. It's not like someone can OD on that.
It's not, propofol
right?
is not the problem.
It's not fentanyl. It's not cocaine.
No, it's not fentanyl. It's not ketamine.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a street drug.
Yeah.
No one abuses propofol that I know of.
Right.
But yeah, no, propofol is not the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what have any patients, because you don't really see patients, but so because my dad was an oral surgeon, and like, he would always prescribe Vicodin or some type of painkillers. And like patients, I'd always hear him get phone calls like a week later at midnight. Oh, doctor, I'm still in pain. Doctor, I need some more prescriptions, or something like that.
Yeah.
Can anyone get addicted off what you guys administer?
No, the agents that we give that are so short acting, can't. Because we actually I had a patient who was an addict, a heroin addict. And he said, please don't give me any drugs because I'm an addict and I can't have those. And I was like, no. Like, for your colon surgery, you need a little fentanyl. Like, it's going to be fine. And this is not going to like re-addict you. You know what I'm saying?
And trust me, for that surgery, you're going to want something.
Yeah, I think you deserve a little fentanyl or taking out your large colon, Yeah.
Have you ever had any pregnant women say, I don't want that epidural? And then all of a sudden,
like 4 hours
minute,
later, screaming for it. Because when I was on call, and I don't do OB anymore, but I used to, and so you take overnight call,
right?
And on the floor would be the patients who were in labor. And when I started my call shift, I always made it a point to go and introduce myself to the women and their husbands and family members or whatever. Hi, I'm Dr. Moon. I'm the anesthesiologist on call tonight. I just wanted to introduce. And while I'm doing that, I'm also sort of assessing their airway and their body habitus so that I'm kind of taking notes.
Yeah.
And this one lady cussed me out, threw me out of her. I don't want anesthesia. I want a natural birth. Get the F out of my room. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
I just was like introducing myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't like come in with my epidural kit, like trying to stab you.
Yeah.
And she threw me out of her room, like cussed me out. And then like 4 hours later, the nurse paged me and she's like, room 4 wants an epidural. And I looked at my little paper. I was like, room 4? That's the lady that kicked me out.
That hippie.
I was like, no way. So then I called the nurse back and I was like, so-and-so patient? And she was like, yeah, she wants an epidural. And I was like, oh, I'm on the toilet right now. It's going to be like 10 minutes. Like, tell her
Let her squirm.
I'm walking slowly over there. Yeah. No, I mean, I went and did her epidural and she was grateful. But PSA, you guys, don't be mean to anesthesiologists. We're generally people who can be helpful to you if you be nice to us.
Yeah, exactly.
We have the good drugs. Be nice to us.
So that was going to ask you, that was going to be my next question, right? So as an anesthesiologist, like two questions, I guess. Number one, I'll talk about the woo-woo hippies out there who are into alternative medicine. What are your views on that?
My mom does a lot of ancient Chinese medicine. She does acupuncture, cupping, all that stuff.
I like it too.
So I think there's space for traditional medicine, Eastern therapies. And then I have friends that are really into like energy reading and like Reiki and crystals and woo-woo transcendental things.
Quantum.
I don't understand. I never learned about that in medical school. I never learned about it outside of medical school. So I say, as long as it's not dangerous, right? You're not like doing something or like not getting screening tests because you're like, oh no, this crystal is going to cure my cancer. Like, that's crazy. But I say if it's not dangerous and you want to have some alternative therapies, more power to you.
Yeah.
Just don't do crazy stuff.
Well, I kind of half believe it because of the placebo effect.
Right.
Right?
If you think it's working, then it is.
Right. If there is some type of placebo effect that exists, means your mind can somewhat
do
something to whatever you're feeling.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Or else why would there be a placebo effect?
The placebo effect it's real. I mean, I've done clinical trials where I've injected saline into people and they're like, I'm nauseous, and I'm like, I just injected
just
saline
water,
into your
yeah.
IV. Like you were in the control group, but now
Yeah.
I know you're crazy. Thank you. It's real.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so the second question I have for an anesthesiologist about like recreational drugs.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So like what like marijuana does or CBD does to your brain. What are your views on that?
There's been a few studies looking at the long-term effects of CBD and THC in people, but by and large, as an anesthesiologist, we're not that concerned about marijuana intoxication.
Okay.
Unless something crazy has happened. The drugs we are more concerned with are any methamphetamines because they increase your heart rate and blood pressure, cocaine, fentanyl, ketamine, those sorts of things, the more hard drugs. Marijuana, by and large, doesn't affect our anesthetic plan that much.
Thank God.
Jeffrey.
Okay, so let's go through that list.
Was that a personal question? Because I feel like that was, yeah.
Not right now because we're working, but so what's the worst then? Go through that list. What are the worst drugs to use? From like 1 to 10 or 1 to 5.
The worst is probably heroin, fentanyl, opioids like Oxycontin, because when you're addicted to those medicines, you have a higher tolerance. So now I'm having to give you like high levels of opioids to control your pain. And a lot of those patients, we can't get their pain under control because they're so used to having opioids in their system. They have amazing tolerance.
Right.
Cocaine is bad.
Okay, cocaine's really bad.
Yes, it increases your heart rate and your blood pressure. So if you're young, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're old, it can exacerbate any sort of myocardial infarction. It can cause a stroke. There can be contaminants that get into your system. And then I would say probably the next one is like ketamine. But usually people don't come to the hospital with ketamine problems. Usually, mostly what we see at my hospital is cocaine, meth, and fentanyl, and heroin.
Okay, meth is pretty bad too.
Meth is bad, yeah.
I just listened to a podcast about the Nazis using meth.
Oh yeah, to keep their soldiers awake.
Right?
Yeah. They were
actually made it in a lab specifically to keep them awake.
Correct.
Right? But
Yeah.
it dumbs you down, but at least keeps you awake so you can keep shooting.
I mean, it doesn't dumb you down, not in the acute sense. But yeah, cocaine. And then also I heard that Adderall, like stimulants, were created for the same purpose, to keep the soldiers awake.
Really?
Yes.
So what do you feel about students using Adderall or,
It seems like everyone's on it these days. I like all my medical students, like half of them are on Adderall or some sort of stimulant, Vyvanse, Focalin, I don't know all the names of them.
Well, I think it's crazy because like prescription drugs when I were growing up,
it wasn't a thing.
No one knew.
I know.
Like your doctor gave it to you and you ate it, but nowadays everyone's talking about it. Oh, do you have any Adderalls?
Yeah.
Hey, do you have any Prozacs? Hey, by the way, do you have any Ozempics?
Yeah.
Right? Like, do you have any syringes? Hey, I need a couple, I don't know, milligrams, grams. I don't know how they're talking about it, but
I have no idea. But yeah, people like know the meds now.
Right?
Yeah, because of the advertising.
What do you think about Ozempic?
I mean, Ozempic for people who have an indication for it is great. The problem is that it's going to bankrupt our healthcare system because it's so freaking expensive, and like Medicaid and Medicare can't pay for all that Ozempic. It's
Well,
so
a lot of
expensive.
housewives are using Ozempic, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right?
I'm sure.
What do you feel about that?
I went to a brunch the other day and I was the only person eating. Like nobody eats anymore. It's crazy. Nobody eats anymore. I don't think most people need it. I think it was created for people with an active indication like diabetes, obesity, and then a lot of people are using it off label.
Right.
To be skinny.
Yeah.
I used to be special because I'm always skinny, but now everybody's skinny, so I'm not special anymore.
Well, I know a lot of people are using it. A lot of people are, trying. I heard actually that a lot of health insurance companies may be prescribing it because it will reduce the chance of diabetes or other complications because of body weight.
Correct. No,
right?
there have been studies that long-term use of Ozempic, because it decreases your A1C, so now you basically don't have diabetes anymore, and then you lose weight, so the hypertension goes away, and then you have better cardiovascular and metabolic health.
Right.
The only issue is that we don't know what the long-term effects of being on Ozempic for like 5, 10, 15, 20 years are, because nobody's ever been on it that long.
Right.
I don't think there is a large danger. I think probably it's fine, but I think probably if you don't need it, don't use it.
Right.
Right.
So, well, I mean, it kind of like, I don't want to call it cheating, but I think
It's
everyone's
cheating.
looking for like a shortcut.
Yes, Americans, we love shortcuts. No one wants to be healthy, eat well, nutritious, whole foods, go to the gym. You just, get stabbed once a week and be skinny.
Yeah, I want to eat In-N-Out, but then I want to be skinny too at the same time.
Yeah, you can have it all with Ozempic.
I know, right? It's kind of crazy, this world we live in.
It is crazy.
Because I see sometimes I'm watching like the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden I see, a McDonald's ad.
Right.
And then right after that I see like a drug ad.
I know.
Right? How do you
I know.
reduce your hypertension?
I
And then
know.
I see a Taco Bell ad.
No, it's crazy. I literally am reading a book right now that talks about how in America, the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry are basically in bed with each other. And the whole premise of this book is that they want to keep Americans sick. They want you to be obese, diabetes, hypertension, cancer, depression,
Right.
fibromyalgia, polycystic ovarian disease, all these things, because they profit off that.
Well,
and I
it's
was
interesting.
Like, that's so sad.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, you are also part of that system, right?
Yeah.
So, it's weird that I wouldn't say you benefit from it, because a lot of the anesthesia comes from, bigger surgeries, like you said, colonoscopies, other things like this.
Yeah.
But, are you conflicted by that? Or how do you feel about the healthcare industry at large?
That's a good question. I think 10 years ago, I would have answered this question very differently. But sometimes I leave the hospital a little bit depressed because we're managing a lot of chronic diseases. And I feel like we're not truly helping people. Like where we would have helped them is to educate them 40 years ago to not smoke and be overweight and have diabetes. And then today we cut off a gentleman's foot because his diabetes is so bad that he's not perfusing his feet, and we just did an amputation, So I'm like, do I feel good about myself today? I mean, I guess they give anesthesia for his foot amputation.
Right.
But really, why don't we spend our money and our time and our energy on educating people to be healthy, but then we let people do all these bad things, and then we benefit off of them with all the drugs that they have to take, and then they're in the healthcare system, and surgeons are making money, I'm making money, but that's not what I want. I
Right.
want people to be healthy. So I think the healthcare system in America is incredibly broken. Sometimes I feel like I'm just a cog in the machine, just, do my job, earn my paycheck and go home. I mean, some days we do really meaningful surgeries like liver transplants, kidney transplants, cancer surgeries where the cancer was contained and we were able to take out that section of the lung. And so basically now you're cancer free. So those are really rewarding. But sometimes I do surgeries that I'm like, oh, this is such a sad state of affairs. I feel like it could have been preventable.
So as a doctor, where are you on the whole vegan or, protein, all these different diets out there? You have the, OMAD and all this. What do you think?
I don't even know. I cannot keep up with all the trendy diets. In the 1990s, when I was in elementary school, we had that food pyramid.
Yeah.
And on the bottom was 7 servings of carbs.
Yeah.
But then in the 2000s, when I was in college, they were like, oh, don't eat carbs. Carbs are bad for you.
Right.
And it's too much diet trends. I'm like, what we need to be doing is eating whole foods, protein from high quality sources, grass-fed beef, chickens that were free ranging and not stuck in a box their entire life. We need to eat good stuff. Food is medicine. And we eat so much shit, so much shit. And I have shit in my pantry. I have potato chips and, I go to In-N-Out occasionally too, But I always say if you can be good 80% of the time, you can be bad 20% of the time.
Right.
Right? Because I mean,
who doesn't like a glass of wine, right? Who wants some
have
tequila?
A glass of wine, right? Like have some tequila, it's fine. But try to be good 80% of the time, and don't eat foods that sit on a shelf for ages. I always get mad at Daniel because he likes Spam. So we've had fights because I'm like, it's meat in a can, and the expiration date is like 2027.
Right.
So explain to me how that you think is nutritious for your body.
I'll only eat Spam when I'm in Tokyo, or like those Spam burgers.
Yeah.
Or sometimes when I'll eat it like fried rice and I don't know it.
Right.
And they
look,
chop it up all fine.
It's salty, it's good, but it's not good for you.
Right.
I'm never going to say that Spam is nutritious for you. Can you have some Spam fried rice or a Spam masubi, Sure, of course. Let that be in the 20%.
Right.
But don't tell me you think that's nutritious.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's get back to the idea of healthcare being broken. And, I know that recently on your Instagram, you were talking about the gender pay gap.
Yeah.
For doctors and medical field at large.
Yeah.
Have you actually experienced that?
Yeah. I think there was some unpublished data that came out of a study showing that women in anesthesia made less than the men, even when you account for years of experience and how much call you take. Because anesthesia, by and large, is like however much you work is however much you get paid. If you do more surgeries, you earn more money.
Right.
So even when adjusted for hours worked and years of experience, there was still a pay disparity.
Okay.
And all of us just sort of looked at each other and like shrugged. We were like, how? Why?
Including seniority, including time off, including everything like that?
Yeah. So somebody at a higher pay grade than me is going to need to figure that out.
Okay.
But basically, besides medicine, I think just standard American jobs, like women are paid like 74 cents for every dollar that a man is paid. And I'm like, that's insane. Like what? And over time, right? Like compound interest, that becomes more severe. It doesn't sound so bad now, but then if you think about, year after year after year of that pay disparity, like why? I just want to know why.
Okay. Do you think it's also because, like you said, maybe women have more hats to wear and they have to do other things?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, if the kids are ill or some, buddy falls off their bike and lands in the children's ER, generally speaking, the mom needs to stop what she's doing and like rush and go help the kid and stay home for the next few days to help and stuff.
Right.
So I think there is a penalty, if you will, as a woman with children who also has a career, that you have other hats to wear, and sometimes that hurts your career.
Because like I kind of feel like sometimes the pay gap is because women are in jobs that aren't as appreciated as much. For example, like teaching. Right. There's more female teachers than there are men teachers.
Way more.
But we just pay teachers less. Well,
in general, the American education system doesn't value teachers, whereas in China, like teachers are revered. Like Lao Shi is a big deal, but here, like the public school teachers at least are getting paid like I don't even know how much, but it's not appropriate. Yeah. If you want to emphasize that education is important, then you need to pay the teachers more. Right.
Yeah. But so have you like found someone with the same job as you or something, and they were getting paid more than you, and you were like, hey, this ain't right?
Not me, but a surgeon friend of mine who is a female found out that a male in her department was getting paid significantly more than her, and they're the same level.
Really? Did she speak up about it?
I think so. I think there may be some lawyers involved.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not at my institution,
but
I heard because, having this women's empowerment and leadership summit, like a lot of women are coming to me with stories and they want to be a speaker. And I said, well, our speakers for this year's full already, but if this all goes well, I hope to do the summit again next year.
Right.
So can you at least, give me the pitch about what you want to talk about it next year? So one of them gave me a pitch about, gender pay gap. Right. And she had all this data, all this research, references. And I was like, hey, that was a pretty good talk there.
I know you have the Lead Her conference in Dallas, right, coming up. And then you're also writing a book.
Yes.
Okay, what's that about?
The book is called Joy Prescriptions, and I would describe it as half memoir, half self-help. Right? So basically half memoir, half self-help, because in each chapter of the book, at the end, there is a joy prescription that I am imparting to the reader to take back and use in their own life.
Okay.
Like coming from China, learning English, being made fun of when I was 6 years old. That was a really difficult part of my life, but I learned a lot from it. And it's sort of, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. So then I distill that into a joy prescription at the end of each chapter so that people can be like, oh yeah, I can do this in my own life too. So hopefully, I think, the target audience for the book is probably women who are high achieving and always trying to prove themselves. Because at the end of the book, what I impart to the reader is really that if you're going to chase anything in life, like chase joy.
Right.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to find joy now, though? Because, I was living in China for a long time. I spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia, a lot of places, and they look at America as the goal. That's where they want to end up, right? And Chinese is 美国嘛, right? It's like a beautiful country.
Beautiful country.
So people want to come here.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I get asked that question. It's like, why aren't people happy there?
I know.
Or why what's going on over there?
Why do we have such high rates of depression, suicide?
Yeah.
And like an average life expectancy that's lower, like 5 years lower than every other, European country. Like what's going on in America?
I don't think that happened when we were growing up, at least.
No, it's recently.
It's a recent thing, right?
It's so bad.
And like the rise in anxiety.
And young people, harming themselves or doing drugs. And
is it just social media, you think?
I think social media accounts for a large part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think it leads to a lot of depression and drug use in kids and girls not feeling adequate because everyone else is out there looking, perfect and filtered and just feeling really inadequate and seeing that your friends all went to a party but you weren't invited. Like that's really hard.
Do you feel like the effects of social media are stronger for little girls and little boys?
It's different. There's like studies that show how it affects little girls and how it affects boys, and it tends to be worse in girls.
Right.
They are the ones who tend to consume social media and have like jealousy and fear of missing out and comparison issues. Whereas boys don't tend to use social media as much, except when it comes to like watching YouTube and gaming. But a lot of the posting and stuff, that's for the most part female dominant.
It's odd because the women are getting actually the more engagement and the more attention. So you'd feel like they're getting more of the dopamine hit. They feel like you're getting more of the upside of the social media. But at the same time, you see more, like you said, little girls are being affected more by it.
Yeah. And there is a dopamine rush, right? Like when you post something and people like or people comment and they're like slay, or fire emoji, and that's a little dopamine hit.
Right.
And it's variable reinforcement, just like a slot machine. And so you don't know when it's going to hit. So you stay there for hours, pulling the lever, pressing the button, checking your likes. It's the same reinforcing strategy. And you don't know when you're going to have a viral video go out. So then you have something viral and you get that huge dopamine rush and you're always just chasing it. But in between the little bouts of dopamine rush is a lot of sadness and depression and comparison and not feeling good enough, and it's bad.
It's weird that you describe it because it sounds like you're describing cocaine.
It's drugs. It's drugs. I mean, gambling, sex, drugs, it's the same dopamine circular. I mean, I have a undergraduate degree from Cornell in neurobiology.
Oh.
So I can explain, but it's the same.
Okay.
People who are addicted to drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, social media, it's the same reward circuitry.
Wow. Because it's, they say everyone is addicted to something. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone has some type of addiction.
Yeah.
And it's usually, it's started from the brain.
Yeah.
Right? Where you're getting that dopamine
That's it.
kick, right?
Yep.
So is the point to, like you said, try to hold it back from your kids as long as possible?
Hold it back because their brains are still developing and they can't handle it. And then when you give them a phone, like don't just give it to them and do whatever the hell they want. There's parental controls for a reason. You need to be restricting that. They still find ways around it, but at least try. And then you need to have a conversation with your teen about like not everything you see is real. And there's going to be, times when it looks like everyone else is out having fun and doing cool things and you didn't get invited. And there's going to be things that you probably shouldn't see. Like you need to have a conversation with your kid and not just like hand them the phone and let them off, right?
But I feel like the dopamine addiction is actually prevalent in adults just as much as it is kids, right?
For sure.
So what would you advise give to people as it pertains to adult use of social media?
I mean, it's like everything else in life. Moderation is the key. I have a tequila and a glass of wine on some nights, but I generally don't have 6,
Right.
And with social media, I check every day and I try to post at least 2 or 3 3 times a week to keep my engagement up.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I'm really busy with something, I'm like, digital detox, like take a break. It's fine. Like dry January, digital detox. It's fine.
Have you done a digital detox?
Yeah, I have a little bit. I was thinking about doing one next week because it's my birthday and I'm
Happy
like,
birthday.
I don't want to be working on my birthday.
Right.
But then I'm like, oh, well, how will I see everybody's happy birthday messages if I'm not on my phone?
Exactly.
Then I'm like, oh no.
Well, digital detox, my friends do that and they've suggested it to me, and they're really heavy into meditation.
Yeah.
And what that does to the brain.
Meditation's great.
Okay, so this will be one of the last questions, but for meditation, and what it, they also have done research about meditation and what it does to brain waves and whatnot.
Yes.
Have you looked at that compared to what you guys do in anesthesia?
Yeah, it's not the same. Meditation, anesthesia is so heavy hitting that we basically like silence your EEG activity.
Okay.
If you meditate properly, and we've done studies on this, wearing like a process EEG, you can see when people are getting like delta waves, or I forgot if it's beta, one of those waves, that they're in that like meditative state.
Really?
Yes. And like the heart rate is lower, the blood pressure is lower. Like if people meditate, I think the whole country would be better off if everyone meditated. And I've tried over and over again. I went to a meditation class. I joined a meditation studio. I have a meditation app on my phone and I still suck at it.
Really?
Yeah. And then I was telling my coach the other day, she was like, have you been meditating? Because I'm like, I'm so stressed out planning the summit. Like this shit is driving me crazy. And she's like, did you meditate today? I'm like, I didn't have time to meditate today because I had like 6 Zoom calls and trying to put out fires. And she goes, Tiffany, the days when you didn't have time to meditate are the days when you need the meditation the most. And I was like,
mind blown. Come on, yo.
I know.
Right?
I know. I was like, you're right. You're right.
All right. Well, on that note,
let's all go meditate.
Omi tofu, okay? I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was great, actually.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, please come back maybe next year when you release your book.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That'd be great. All right. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Yay!